As a major Disney fan, I have a long-standing appreciation for the animated films, and I was keen to experience the next adventure from Moana 2. From the trailers, I knew that the narrative would focus on Moana's connection to her ancestors and her new role as a Wayfinder. What we received in the film was a journey across the sea to waters and constellations that few people from Motunui had visited before. As she sets sail into the unknown, Moana leads a crew and faces down power-hungry gods. At the same time, she cements her legacy, making her name known across the world. It's a heartwarming story of duty and perseverance. In today's video, I'll recap Moana's most epic adventure. The film opens with Moana in the thick of her latest adventure. She races across an island with her faithful animal companions, Pua and Heihei. As they make the climb to the highest peak of the island, Moana blasts a summoning call through a seashell, hoping the noise will alert nearby civilization. They hear nothing aside from Heihei's false call from swallowing a shell. In the chaos, Pua nearly falls from the cliffside, prompting Moana to dive and save him. With a final push from Heihei, the trio falls several feet, with trees and vines breaking their fall. When Moana reaches the bottom, she finds Heihei with the remnants of a clay pot on his head. The pot depicts a group of people at the foot of an island, which is marked by a constellation Moana doesn't recognize. However, the pot is proof of human life, and it sends Moana sailing for home. The sequel takes place 3 years after the first, and Moana has spent that time sailing the seas alone, searching for signs of life. As the Wayfinder of Motunui, she is desperate to finish what her ancestors started by reconnecting with others across the ocean. However, she has had no luck thus far. Moana's excitement is palpable as she journeys home with her newest discovery. She bursts into song about returning home, where she is meant to be. It's at this point in the film where we see Moana's people are thriving, with lines in the song describing their booming population and newest innovations. The people of Motunui welcome Moana's father, who is now willing to race her across the reef, and her little sister, Simia. Moana is treated like a leader and living legend by her people. Her success with Te Fiti has earned her immense respect, from the local storyteller regaling his fellow villagers with her story, to the local children mimicking her appearance. Moana is most idolized by Simia, who complains about Moana's absence before inquiring about a gift. When she seems less than impressed with the pot, Moana takes her to the cave of their ancestors. The location is pivotal from the first film, as it depicts the history of Motunui, the past Wayfinders, and houses Moana's original ship. She uses the location to explain why she often leaves Motunui and what she aspires to do. Later, as Moana's people celebrate her return and latest discovery, Moana is bestowed with the honor of becoming more than a chief, by sharing the same title as her ancestor, the last great Wayfinder, Tautai Vasa. During the ceremony to accept her new role, Moana is struck by lightning, forcing her into a vision where she personally speaks with Tautai Vasa. He explains that he never achieved his goal of connecting their people, and if Moana wants to save her own, she will need to follow a blazing star to the island of Motufutu. Upon awakening from the lightning strike, she tells her parents about the vision and must decide if she'll make the perilous journey, which could cost her her life. Her grandmother Tala visits her to offer guidance, encouraging Moana to embrace her destiny. When Moana ultimately decides that fulfilling her duty is worth the risk, she assembles a crew to help her on her voyage. The crew includes her animal companions, the storyteller Moni, the experienced farmer KK, and the eccentric craftswoman Lotu. Meanwhile, Maui hasn't been an idol in the past 3 years. As a demigod, he's already aware of the course plaguing Motufatu and the people of the ocean. He has set off to deal with the threat alone, which takes him to the lair of the goddess Matangi. Matangi is the enforcer of Nelo's will, the god responsible for separating Moana's people. After a brief struggle, Maui is captured by Matangi and separated from his hook, making him a prisoner. With only his magical tattoo as a companion, he spends his time trying to get help from the wildlife in vain. Although he's encouraged to get help from Moana, Maui refuses, claiming that bringing her in on his quest could cost her life. The crew sailed for days, trailing after the star in the sky. Along the way, Moana has to teach them how to sail, embrace their journey, and work as a team. They eventually cross paths with the Kakamora, who explains that Nelo's storm also separated them from their island, to which they desperately want to return to. They believe they found the way forward before they were intercepted by a giant ship-eating clam. The two crews strike a deal. If Moana can defeat the clam, then the Kakamora will help her reach Motufatu. Armed with tranquilizing spears, Moana and her crew sail into the mouth of the clam, but when they lose their weapons, they're aided by an extremely competent member of the Kakamora. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, as Moana's ship is brought into an underwater prison by a whirlpool. Moana is separated from her crew, who encounter the imprisoned Maui. He dismisses their attempts to help, convincing them to stay put and remain out of trouble until he finds Heihei. Recognizing the rooster, his priorities change to helping Moana. Moana, meanwhile, meets Matangi. The goddess explains that while she has helped Nalo, she is also trapped and can't leave the underwater prison. She encourages Moana to continue her journey alongside Maui, who she was keeping trapped to ensure the old friends have a reunion. Matangi teaches Moana that there is always a way forward and sometimes she must go off the beaten path to succeed. Moana, Maui, and the crew reunite at a gate of the gods, which takes them across the ocean to Matefatu. Now, in the dark waters where even the ocean won't heed Moana's call, the crew must survive against a pack of hungry sea serpents. Moni almost dies in the process, and their damaged ship barely manages to dock on a nearby island. On the island, Moana finds the lost ship of Tautai Vesa, which further dampens her spirits. Maui takes it upon himself to give Moana a pep talk, encouraging her to remember what she's capable of. With his aid and support from her crew, the group set out for Motefatu. As they approach the sunken island, Maui worries about Moana's safety and her human companions'. The island is guarded by a raging storm, and while he manages to stop its lightning strikes and swirling tornadoes, he keeps circling back to protect their ship. Moana encourages him to fly into the eye of the storm and lift the island, promising she will be there to touch the shores and lift the curse. Maui does so, leaving behind the crew to lodge his magical hook into Motefatu, using all his strength to lift the island until he is struck by Nalo, resulting in the temporary loss of his power. With Maui falling into the ocean, there is no one left to lift Motefatu. However, Moana takes the path less traveled and jumps into the water, swimming her way down to the island, even as she's hit by a bolt of lightning. She gets struck just as her hand brushes against the land, lifting the curse. Maui, rescued by the crew, awakes to find Moana missing. With the curse lifted, he launches into the water to find his friend, but she is already dead. He cradles her body, singing a song from her people as the ocean, able to reach them once more, forms a protective bubble around them. Maui is joined by Moana's ancestors, including the spirits of Grandma Tala and Tautai Vesa. As they mourn her sacrifice, Moana is touched by magic, seemingly from the gods, and revived. With a tattoo of her own and Maui's restored, the friends continue with lifting Motefatu from the sea. Once docked on the island shores, Moana and her crew watch as the ocean's currents converge, allowing anyone to journey to the island. Moana uses her shell to do another summoning call, which is answered by several ships. For the first time in her life, Moana meets other people. She then takes these representatives back to Motunui, where they can forge alliances with her people. In the end, Moana, Maui, and their crew begin another journey of finding uncharted waters and discovering who lies beyond them. In the mid-credits scene, the audience receives the first glimpse of Nalo, who sits on a throne. He questions Matangi, wondering how Moana and Maui were able to reunite and foil his plans. Despite her playing ignorance, Nalo binds her hands, forcing her into continued servitude. They're then joined by Tamatoa, the giant crab from the first film, who wants to help them get revenge on Moana. The scene implies these three will become the overarching antagonists for the franchise. In my opinion, Moana 2 was a strong sequel with a compelling story. Most of the audience would already know the world, lore, and characters, so it didn't need to take time re-establishing well-known knowledge. Instead, it felt like a flawless transition for Moana as she began taking steps to achieve her true destiny. As the film states, restoring Te Fiti was only the beginning, and Moana was the one destined to restore the ocean's channels and reconnect her people. While Moana ultimately achieves this goal, she still has miles of ocean to chart, which leads me to believe that her story is far from over. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to stay updated on our uploads.